Recruiting agents for insurance and finance. Now, I understand this video could get controversial, but try to make it all the way through to the end. I think there's a lot to be uncovered here. Let's get into it. Let's start by identifying some facts. Just because someone's able to pass a license exam doesn't mean they're necessarily ready to sell financial products or anything at all. The financial services industries have historically maintained about a 20% turnover rate. That is, 8 out of 10 people who enter the business remain there for their career. The studies that I have read show this range is about 16.2% on the low end up to about 27.5% on the high end, at least for the recent years. But when we zoom in on the life insurance industry specifically, the failure rate is greater than 90%, and that's just in the first year. 30% leave within the first 90 days. Let's put this into perspective. If I were to hire 100 agents today to join our life insurance team, realistically, I should only expect 10 or less to still be with me at the end of 12 months. Something just doesn't sound right. Let's say I hired a recruiter whose sole responsibility is to seek and onboard new brokers for our life insurance division. Do you think his or her job would be secure with 90% attrition? Of course not. All right, let's put this into a monetary perspective. Before becoming licensed in personal finance, I was in corporate management. And one of the corporations I worked for, we performed a study. How much did it cost us just to bring on a new hire for my department? We learned that it cost me $5,000 just to hire someone, regardless of their longevity with the company. Recruiting had to be taken very seriously. It literally cost my department. So translate this into the life insurance recruiting. Are you choosing the right people? You know what? Don't answer that question just yet. First, let's do a little exploring. Let's talk about requirements and responsibilities. Obviously, one must be licensed to operate in this business. So which makes for the better recruit? Someone who's already holding a license or someone who has not even yet taken the exam? Let's discuss both. Before we talk differences, let's talk about common requirements between the two. The first question I now ask of any candidate is simply, do you currently own any life insurance policies on yourself and or your family? This is a very critical precondition for selling life insurance, yet it is so often overlooked by almost all recruiting agencies. How do you expect to successfully offer a service to another when you don't believe in this service yourself? It's simply inauthentic. Without authenticity, your time in the business will very likely be short-lived. I mean, I don't necessarily have to run these people off, but it is a requirement that their first sell would be to themselves. Second commonality is ethics. What level of commitment is this agent bringing to the table? This is why I no longer deal with part-timers. The demand is simply too high and the magnitude is too great. I'm not trying to go biblical here, but no man can serve two masters, for he will be devoted to one and despise the other. Now, I get it. You will hear stories of those who become licensed and write a couple policies while maintaining their day jobs. Very few do this consistently, and besides, they're only doing it to boost their income. This isn't their survival income. They're just doing this as a supplementary income. Most part-timers are seeking what's unofficially termed as complementary income, meaning they're not making enough at their current job to fulfill their needs. So they're looking for this life insurance license to enable them to possibly fill in the gap. The problem here is this is half the commitment, but with the full ramifications of the failure. A single chargeback will send this individual into financial turmoil. Bottom line, licensed or unlicensed, full commitment is required. So let's look into the unlicensed. Does it matter? Do we want the inexperienced? We've already established that level of commitment requirement of the agent, but what about the uplines? We know these guys require lots of support. So it's the commitment on us as uplines that's needed to balance the equation. And by the way, most of the recruiting opportunities we see are going to be those who are unlicensed and looking to get into the business. So what questions should we be asking the unlicensed? Why? Why is it's this industry that you seek? Are you the dreamer who's in it to look for easy income? Or are you expecting high pay for a low workload? By the way, that is a twofold question. I do want recruits looking to increase their income and lower their workload. But down the road, I believe we all should be looking to build a revenue stream that's sustainable whether we work or not. But people tend to behave like water, always looking for the path of least resistance. Are they in it to win it? Is it worth our efforts as uplines to support those with minimum expectations upon themselves? While conducting interviews with new unlicensed recruits, you want to know what question I get so often that just totally alarms me?
Is this a commission-only position, or is there a salary? Like, I'm just curious if I still get paid if I don't make any sales.
First of all, just a little bit of prior research would have answered that question. The red flag really comes in their insecurity for their own apprehensiveness. I have found that the individuals who are deeply concerned with being 100% accountable for their own production are crippling themselves psychologically before embarking on what is already a laborious journey. These are also the people who tend to set their performance goals right at the minimum requirements. Well, what if the recruit is already licensed? Is this the better recruit? Well, it depends. If newly licensed but just starting out, I'd vet them the same way that I would with the unlicensed, but I would give them the beginning credit of going ahead and making that first big step. Now, if they're veterans of the business, we've got some investigating to do. The obvious question is, why are you jumping ship? The ideal response I like to receive to this question is, I'm not getting support from my current upline, and I'd like to get higher commissions on my consistent writing production. It's a beautiful opportunity, but it has become the industry unicorn. So what are the bad responses of the veterans? Are you getting pushed out of your current organization for not making minimum production? Are you carrying debt? Or what good can come from taking on a failed agent on a sinking ship? Now, to run this video out, I'm going to speak directly to 3 different entities: to agents, to recruiting uplines, and to the carriers. To agents. If I'm an agent on the market, I want to work with an upline who has strong writing experience and high expectations for me. Someone who seems to understand that I'm going to need support, and promptly. Early on, you're going to find yourself in positions where you're going to need to call in that tag team to make the close. And it's always nice to know you got someone in the paint and you can toss up that alley-oop. Also, dress the part. That's right. I don't care if you work from home. It's the person you see in the mirror that's going to be making these phone calls. Your mindset is a direct reflection of that professional you see in the mirror looking back. Here's a story on that topic. There was a recruiter for a very well-known agency, and she conducts her interviews over Zoom. If the recruit joins that interview session wearing anything less than proper business attire, she immediately ends the meeting, postpones, and sometimes doesn't reschedule at all. I love it. All right, last note to agents. If you are unwilling to invest in yourself and buy your own leads, do not expect to receive high comps. And if you're dead set in receiving free leads in exchange for low comps, get ready for bottom of the barrel trash leads. You've now officially accepted the position in waste management. Now, to the recruiting upline, whether experienced or newly licensed, you've got to be selective. We're talking skin in the game. If you're recruiting, you've got experience. You know the game. You know the path ahead. Is this person showing characteristics of persistence? Here's a tip. Recruit based on the same values and principles that you hold to yourself. Are we looking for Kool-Aid drinkers?
Hey, Kool-Aid!
Oh yeah!
a run, get a big, wide, happy ear-to-ear Kool-Aid smile. 'Cause the biggest smile is a Kool-Aid smile. A Kool-Aid smile, a Kool-Aid smile.
Your friend's cool. My friend's Kool-Aid.
Consider the words of Napoleon Hill. He says to seek compassionate and obsessive professionals, people who are compassionate on helping other people and are obsessed on getting the job done. Properly vet these ship jumpers. Sure, their experience is preferred. It's quite convenient when they come aboard with a set of skills and a book of business, but are you checking for their carrier debts? People aren't always very forthcoming with this information, and for slick reasons too. Vector 1 can be helpful, but I do not hear of very many GAs who are subscribing to it. Just know that by onboarding someone, you're not only taking on any future debt they may obtain, but you're actually co-signing for any previous debt they may already have. And then they still might ditch. Now, here's an issue I see with many, not all, recruiting uplines. And if you're not doing this, respect. Many of you are recruiting strictly for volume. Yes, you're playing the numbers game. Meaning, if you can onboard as many licensed bodies as possible, you might get a collective benefit. Catch that? Let's state it another way. If you are simply onboarding licensed agents in the attempt to accumulate a high volume downline, you are ambiguously praying that their aggregated number of sales will produce a good sized production for yourself. I mean, each individual can have low production, but they all sum up for your numbers. By operating this way, you are actually incentivized not to be selective, because even though they're not doing well for themselves, their small contributions are providing your collective benefit. This is your basic model of quantity over quality. So you might say, so why is this a problem? This is technically a working business model, and my agency is showing high production. All right, well, congrats to you, Mr. Unethical. But what about that struggling agent who only wrote that one policy this month? I mean, sure, it added to your aggregate for the month, but how long do you think this individual will remain in the business on such low production? Many are simply not even covering their out-of-pocket lead costs, which is their expense, not yours. That 92% failure rate starting to make a lot of sense. In many cases, we could have prevented that agent failure by simply vetting properly and turn them away for their own sake. The hard truth, not everyone belongs in this industry. Practicing proper recruiting measures should serve as some type of filter. So let's direct some speak to the carriers. Wait, what? So how could any of this possibly affect the carriers? Very good question. Ask any of the top-rated carriers, and I have, about their experience with policy lapses with final expense and term policies. And I'm not even talking long-term. I'm specifically talking about the lapses within the first year of writing. We have received direct reports of up to nearly 40% of newly written business lapsing within the first 12 months. Now, we know what effect this has on the agent of record who received the commission advance, but you carriers have told us that new business must remain on the books for X number of years before it can provide a net positive. So where's the tie-in? Simple. Many of these first-year lapses were written by inexperienced, struggling new agents who, at not sole fault of their own, wrote ill-advised policies out of desperation or lack of supervision. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm an insurance carrier and the problem has been identified and there actually exists a counter-operation, I'd be quite motivated to participate in that resolution. Well, I think I want to leave it right there. What do you think about recruiting and the downstream effects? Feel free to comment, like, subscribe if you wish. If you'd like to see more content like this, click right here. As always, we like to promote Patrick Bet-David and his outfit. If you'd like to see our interview with him, click right here. See you next time.